What I will talk to you is a word that has been mentioned a couple times, and you have seen stickers around, and that's LibreCores. And so what is LibreCores? So LibreCores is a solution we came up with because of essentially this problem. And what you see right there is essentially the state that OpenCores.org is in right now. It's still there, it's useful, it has its stability problems, but it's not developed anymore. So there is no active or any activity actually going into OpenCores. And well, that's one thing if it would be great, but there is a lot of things that should be improved on OpenCores. Unfortunately, that's not possible the way. So the guys behind OpenCores, which did a great work back then when they launched it, are kind of sleeping on the keyboard right now, preventing anybody from doing improvements to the site. So this is a problem that was recognized by many, many people already. And this is actually one of the reasons why the FOSSi Foundation was founded, to make sure that we can get a bit change and movement behind that. So the history is here, it's called LibreCores and not OpenCores, because we tried everything we possibly could to convince the OpenCores guys to just release their sleeping state and let others improve it. That didn't work out, unfortunately, so that's why we're LibreCores for now. Richard has a question, 1 second. So, well, but if anybody from actually ORSOC that's behind it wants to come along and move on to the right, we're happy to integrate there. So it's not kind of meant to be as a bad fork, but essentially we were forced to it. Yeah, Richard.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a comment. It's not the OpenCores guys that are projecting this. It's ORSOC that bought the copyright, or actually the name OpenCores.org.
Yeah, it's the name and the site, and essentially they're behind it. And so, yeah, that's about the history. What I want to start with is a demo, because I'm one of the not so many people here that actually has Wi-Fi, and I like the kick of live demos on a different laptop with an unstable Wi-Fi connection. So what we're going to do is show you LibreCores as it's online right now. It's been online since 2 or 3 hours, I think. And I want to add a new project to LibreCores, and then this gives you a first impression of what's actually going on. So let me switch over. Okay, that seems to work for so now. That's the new LibreCores site. So essentially, while I will go into the details what it's supposed to do in the end, we wanted to add a new project. That's the main goal. And let's log in first. You will see one design thing that was kind of applied all through LibreCores. We try to avoid doing things that others are already doing. So you can sign in with your existing GitHub account or your existing Google account. I think that's something that most of you will have. So that was easy. So I'm signed in now. If you're doing this for the first time, you will get one screen that allows you to share your GitHub credentials. So now we go to Add Project. Yes. Yes, you can. You can just create a LibreCores account if you want that as well. Okay, it's organized just as GitHub and others are as well. So you have your own namespace. This is essentially on the left. And let's choose a project name. And while I already added one project that I'm working on, so what we're going to try now is add the Palpino inside my namespace, which is not the right thing to do, but it's a demo for now, and we'll also delete it again. So there we have our Palpino. And the only thing you essentially enter is the Git URL that contains the repository. And that's what we're going to do now. So that's where the Palpino source code can be found. We click on Create Project. We need to wait a small bit, and that's actually where, there we go. So what it did is just created a new project on LibreCores, and it essentially took the README file from GitHub. That is part of the project repository. It took the license from GitHub, and it also provides essentially a almost right now empty piece of data sheet right there. So what we do is give you a project listing that essentially relies mostly on the code that the work that you already put in there in the README file, in the license file, things like that, and make it easy for you to add new projects there. Of course, you can search for projects.
Just a question. So the,
yes.
the README file, is it read at once, or will it be dynamically updated?
It's currently crawled on a time base, so it's repeatedly updated, yes. So if you make changes to your GitHub README file, it's updated on LibreCores. So this is something we plan to extend to actually not crawl it every hour, but crawl in every push. But in general, yes, it's updated.
Hey, Philip, quick question. Can we also, where can we do these imports from? Which other sites are we able to?
Any Git URL. So if you host your project on your own private Git server, that's perfectly fine. If you host it on GitHub, Bitbucket, whatever, you just give it a Git URL to the repository, and then you can add it. So this leaves.
Yeah, question. So GitHub supports Wiki as well. Will you start importing those too?
No. So the goal is not to replicate things that are already there. So what we are providing right now is the ability to link to your documentation, to your wiki, to your mailing lists, whatever. But if you have your wiki on GitHub, that's perfectly fine. There's no need to replicate that right there. I guess links are essentially the power of the internet.
Let me just capitalize on your last statement where you said links are the power of the internet. I love links. I love putting links in my README as well if I can do that. GitHub has suggested that links in your README be relative to the GitHub directory structure that the README is found within. Will those relative links then be made valid upon import?
Let's postpone that question for later on. That's kind of one of the annoying things of parsing the README file that's not actually on GitHub. So this can be done. It's currently not there, but we're looking into it because it's a valid problem. Yes. Okay, so we had a search here, and this is actually the OptimSock project. What you see is I added more things on the right side. You see links to the project page, links to the MIT, the license, issue tracker, things like that. That's also the place where you can link your wiki page or whatever you have for your documentation. And this is stuff that is actually not automatically crawled. So this, if you are a project owner, is something you can enter manually. And this is also, by the way, something we decided from early on. So there are some people that choose not to actually, they don't want to update a README file in their Git repository. To change the project listing on LibreCores. So if you don't want to do that, you also have the possibility to say, I don't want to get crawled, but I want to just enter it on LibreCores directly. So you have the full freedom, whatever workflow works for you and you prefer, you can go with that. Good, so that's also the, for all the other information we have right there. It's still pretty basic. So there is more to come, and actually it's kind of demand-driven. So if you have any ideas, that's quick to get integrated. There is other things on the site that I kind of will skip for now and go back to the presentation mode.
One question just before you go on. The search, does that search everything? Like if it's in the README, it will come up, or just the project name?
For now, it's just actually the name and some other things. So it's not currently doing a full text search on the crawled contents, but this is something we're looking into. So, yes.
One of the great things is when you don't know what you want, able to browse. Is there a way of just browsing what projects are there, which is could do on the old OpenCores site?
Currently, yes, with a trick. We'll add actually a link to that in a bit. So yeah.
So one of the next things we want to do is like introducing tags, of course, like where you could sort or like filter by, I want to view at all RISC-V cores, which is probably like the largest list possible in the world. Or you could say, I'm searching for wishbone slaves. Kind of this is the idea about tags. Or like, this runs on this FPGA boards. Like this, another useful tag I want to know, like this has like a quick start to get on the Nexus board, for example. And I think this is the biggest value of such a site, right?
Good. So what you've seen right now is essentially the first online version. So it took a lot of time to actually, next to the regular paid work, to get essentially the basic setup and running. What we're now able to do is iterate quickly actually over demands that come from the community and ideas that we have in mind. And to give you an idea what actually ideas we have in mind, let's have a look at the goals why LibreCores was created essentially. So the basic or the center of LibreCores is sharing of code, as we have just seen, but also make it easier for people to get involved in the open source hardware community. It's kind of really hard at the moment to find documentation that's not completely outdated. So like if you look at OpenCores, there's still this OpenRISC ASIC, I think, that they're trying to build and look for donations for. So the documentation part is missing, and there is this is one area where LibreCores actually is in, or we're trying to be in. So also reuse is one thing. It's hard to find at the moment projects that implement something. It's actually hard to get an overview over how many OpenRISC implementations of CPUs are there actually, how many RISC-V implementations. Just looking at this conferences here, you see like RISC-V implementations are coming up from everywhere. So make it easier to find those and make it easier to compare them actually. And also for people to get into the hardware space is kind of challenging. Either you had a course at university that taught you some Verilog or some hardware design, or you didn't go to university, and then you're never gonna really get an easy entrance to that. So what OpenCores did is they provided their own wiki, they provided their own code hosting, things like that. It turns out there is so many sites on the internet that are much better at code hosting than OpenCores is. And there is many sites that are much better than at hosting a wiki than other sites is. So the design goal that we had is essentially reuse whatever is there and just add the parts that are not there yet. So this brings me essentially to the non-goals of LibreCores. And there is no hosting. There is no hosting of code. There is no hosting of documentation. And there is no hosting of bug trackers. Because this is stuff that you can find somewhere else. Use GitHub, Bitbucket, use your own solutions. That's easy to set up, that's well documented, and that's actually much nicer to go. So what's coming up next? What you saw is essentially the first step. What's the next steps? One thing that was mentioned before is, Richard just mentioned it again, it's hard to assess the quality of a project. What actually is that project usable? Is that core usable? Has it ever been taped out? Does it actually have tests or something like that? So we're looking into quality metrics. And there's, I think, two categories. There is machine-generated metrics. That's like, is there commit statistics? What's the activity on the program, on the core? There is the status. Does it build, actually? Does it test? And there is user-generated quality metrics. That's reviews. It's like the long text version. There's likes or such smaller reactions. And there's other things that kind of might be interesting. One site that I think does this a rather interesting way, or well, nice way, is Puppet Forge. They also have a project hosting, essentially. And what they have is some quality scores and some very easy to answer questions that gets people to interact and say kind of, well, this worked for me, or this didn't work for me. So this gives you, as a user, kind of a quick first impression, is this course something I might want to use, or just search on. Something else that we're looking into is, I think FuseSock has been mentioned a couple times due to Olaf's aggressive marketing, but it's actually mentioned a couple times because it's filling a much needed, it goes in much needed place. So a packet manager. LibreCores is nice and OpenCores is nice, but what you do is essentially you download the SVN, you put it in your own repository or your own zip file, and you never update it again. And you never actually use, or you have a hard time using the improvements that come from upstream. So package managers solve that, and FuseSock is there a good example. And in the end, what you want to have is, if you look at modern solutions to packet managers, that's like, for every programming language seems to have their own one. That's NPM for Node.js, packages, PHP, Cargo for Rust. There is Puppet Forge, there is a couple Linux package managers, obviously, that all solve that problem already. And they usually come with a nicely integrated site, just as LibreCores is, so to make it easy to find a package and use it essentially just in 1 or 2 lines of configuration or commands. Best practices are hard to find. What's license should I choose, hosting, testing, verification. So that's the documentation part that we also considered essentially a core of LibreCores. So that's what's upcoming. As always, things that are upcoming are not done yet, which means we're looking for you. First of all, add your project to a LibreCores. That would be a first fantastic step, and it's really easy. So try it out, let us know how it goes. Don't crash the server immediately. I guess not having Wi-Fi in this room helps. Add your blog to Planet LibreCores. I didn't mention that yet. So blogs are still out there, still a great resource of information. And what Planet LibreCores does is essentially it crawls for a set of blogs and gives you an RSS feed or a website that you can go to and get essentially a listing of all the blog posts that are aggregated over different blog posts. So you get a quick overview of what's going on in the community. If you have your own blog that's not there yet, let us know. Write edit code documentation, write code. How you do that? All the LibreCores code is open source itself. It's written in PHP and a Symfony framework, if that says something to you. You can check it out on GitHub. There's a mailing list and there's an IRC channel that you can actually go to and contribute. Yes, that was, I think, all from my side. I'm open for questions, and if not, we have actually back to Oleg and continuous integration. Yes, but there is a question, Jeremy.
The mechanism submit a pull request to the LibreCores, and there's a team of you moderating and accepting or declining.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
I have a question. So, first of all, are we going to scrape OpenCores and just import all of that?
I'm hesitant to do that. So, I think authors, so whoever wrote something is essentially, it's his job and it's his baby. And so I don't want to take this away from people. So I don't want to essentially take away the ownership from people that put stuff deliberately on OpenCores and kind of automatically transfer it. I think we will make it as easy as possible to get code over, but essentially you as a code writer, it's your choice, so okay, you're not forced.
But what if we know a project is unmaintained and the author is uncontactable, and you know?
I think there are two approaches. So
someone else can do that?
There are two approaches that we want to do. The one is like this project that you mean, like we know there's some people that have not been around for 5 years already, but they have a very basic core like the UART. I think everybody uses. Someone should maybe take care of taking it over and maybe put it under some organization like LibreCores and say, and we can always transfer ownership to individuals, right? The other thing is like, there are still really projects, I'm wondering why they're not here actually, that are very active on OpenCores, like this OpenMSP 430. The plan is to contact them and give them like guidance, like how do you move away from OpenCores? Not that we encourage them to move away, but like it was down for a week, right?
It's not about moving away. We're like an IP aggregator, like IP list place, right? So all right, fair enough. I understand. But what about if Are we going to check for duplicates or something by the GitHub address or OpenCores project ID or something like this, so that, you know, 4 people adding the same project or whatever?
Yeah, so the notion of forks is also there, right?
Yeah, so essentially, I think one of the powers of open source, essentially, you can take the code, you can fork it, you can take over maintainership, and if your code turns out to be better than whatever was there before, essentially, people will move to yours. But then this always kind of requires somebody to take action. Somebody to actually take over maintainership, somebody to actually integrate patches and work with the community. So if there is code out there that nobody cares about enough to put online, I'm not sure if there's actually much of the users there that want to use it. But Chris, yeah.
So one thing on the quality metrics, I think it'd be quite useful to see what other projects are using that core. So if you can somehow, either through FOSSi or through kind of annotations, if there's a kind of parent project and that's using some subcores, you kind of have confidence in those subcores because they're being used by someone else. So like if you can somehow provide visibility of who's using what, that would be good.
Great idea, which actually goes very much into the package manager area again, because then you actually see the dependencies that projects have in a kind of standardized way, and this can actually then be parsed out.
We also have a
great idea.
We also have a ticket about this already. Yeah. Thank you.
Philip, in all the discussion about legacy things, I think a problem was missed, which is that LibreCore, the OpenCores.org is going to die sometime soon. And this is not about, you know, people, there's a lot of useful stuff on there you don't need all the time. And you've only got a narrow window, and it's no use in 6 months' time saying, oh, what a shame, we've lost the Wishbone GPIO, we'll have to write it from scratch. I think there's a merit in saying there should be, I think there was a scrape taken a year ago, and there should just be a simple project that's marked as the OpenCores legacy, where you can go and look up stuff. Like, for example, when Stafford wants to look at the history of who owns that GCC code so that we can sort out the GCC licensing. We want that archived somewhere just so we can go and do that historical stuff. So I think it doesn't have to be a big thing, but it will be useful for LibreCores actually just to keep that snapshot so we've got it there as a permanent archive.
So we got the snapshots actually offline. I'm a bit hesitant. I think this is a tricky area, and what I'm kind of fearing is taking away the power of the owners of the projects, which are rightfully there to say, yes. It's actually, so the snapshots are there, it's safe, just not online.
So like we have a copy of the code, but not like the wikis and bug trackers or whatever are used on OpenCores, right?
What if I have a couple of IP cores in one GitHub repository?
So what we did for now, so the design is essentially, we say add project, which could be software, which could be hardware, which could be also a project that contains multiple hardware cores. What the idea is actually then looking back into the FOSSi area, essentially say under each project you can have a couple cores. And the first idea is to have, if they actually have FOSSi descriptions or IP exact, and I don't know, there might be something else coming up, then you essentially have inside this project multiple cores that you can have. Does that answer the question? Okay.
So firstly, I would encourage you not to solely rely on the package management version of tracking which projects rely on other projects, because that's just not going to fit a lot of workflows for how a lot of projects already exist. And secondly, I would say, given the small amount of information that you're actually putting in your website, and given that it's all factual, I wouldn't worry too much about, you know, pointing elsewhere. Of course, like histories and things like that are a different matter, but I think like pulling in the stuff from OpenCores, just the facts that you would have by default already, and for any other project that's on there, that's just facts. There's no copyright question there. You should just have the links.
The challenge is here, to answer, or to extend to that, kind of the problem with OpenCore is dying is it's OpenCore's SVN, so you just can't just crawl the SVN and put the information up there. It's kind of useless on LibreCores as long as you don't have the SVN. So this is kind of the challenge here. This would also kind of involve copying the data over. But yeah, there's definitely an area where we need to have a look at. There's a question up here.
So, having heard the comments that Jeremy made in the back, let me provide the other half of the argument. Being an author of several projects on OpenCores, and having been very active on them and with them for the last year, anything that has been pulled off of my projects will immediately be out of date after it's been a year or so old. I would certainly be one of those that would not want my code automatically replicated from an out-of-date status to a new server. And so I like the idea of being an author and moving the code myself.
Thanks, yeah.
I can guarantee that it's up to date if I do that.
I guess this pretty nicely captures kind of the interesting challenge that we have here. Yes.
So maybe we can take further questions offline to the dinner. Let's thank Philip for his presentation and demo.